I started out like most people my age would, with a trip to Google. I didn't expect to find a box set for Bright Church or anything, but I'd hoped that maybe a couple episodes existed on YouTube or something. I knew from experience that certain fandoms always seem to spring up from next to nothing, and I was hoping that the Bright Farm show might be one of those too. I also knew that shows from the 80s and 90s always had spotty records, so whatever I was likely to find would be something recorded off a VHS or maybe camera footage. An hour later, however, I was coming up with nothing. YouTube had nothing for me. A Google search brought me a dairy farm in the Midwest, but it didn't look anything like the show. I found no clips, no sound bites, nothing to show that it had ever existed. So I went to the last place I could think to try. I went to Reddit. I posted in their Lost Media, Find a Show, and Foggy Memories subs, along with others, and sat back to wait for a reply. Hey, I remember seeing a show when I was young called Bright Farms. It was maybe religious, I think, but not the usual Baptist or Presbyterian access show. It had puppets and weird lessons that ultimately tried to lead people to the bright or something like that. I lived in Tennessee and it came on either Channel 7 or Channel 8 on the old TV my grandma let me use. I sat for a while, doing other things as I waited for the replies, but it took a while for anyone to take notice. I was working from home at this time, the pandemic having recently sent most of us to work from home, and after a while, I'd almost forgotten about it. I was eating a little lunch about 5 hours later when I remembered the post and went to see if anyone had responded. There were several replies, but only a few that were helpful. Seemed I wasn't the only one who had seen the show. Bendross. Wasn't the host in a country store or something? He was an old McDonald kind of guy with suspenders and a big beard, right? I think his name was Tom or Tim. Me. Yeah, it was Thomas, but the one I remember was Miss Mary. Pigella Snork responded, It didn't come on channel 7 or 8. It came on the channel between 7 and 8. Like, you had to toggle the switch just right, and that was the only way you could find it. Normal Redditor 3357 put in, Man, I haven't thought of that show in years. As I type this up, I'm humming that song they sang all the time, the one about worshiping the bright. Such a banger. Wish I could find it, but it doesn't seem to be anywhere. Bendross to Pigglesnork. Yeah, you're right. I remember my brother and I holding the knob sometimes on the old Philco we had, so, it didn't snap over to 8. I can't remember it real well. I assumed we made it up, but I'll ask my brother about it when he comes home for lunch. I scrolled past a couple of useless responses until I found another one that I liked. Someone named Creaky Crafty Crabbling had responded, Miss Mary was the host when I used to watch it. She always kind of scared me. She was so weird, like she was looking for someone. I don't know how, but she always seemed disappointed to see me. After a while, she seemed to get mad, like she wanted someone else to watch and didn't like seeing me. Me to Creaky Crafty Crabbling. She always seemed happy to see me, but I agree that it was a little weird. It almost seemed like it wasn't recorded at all. It almost felt live. When did you watch the show? Creaky Crafty Crabbling responded, In 91, after school. Me. That's when I used to watch it, up until my dad made me stop. Bendross came back, responding to something I'd said. Me too. My brother and I watched it after school in 91 and 92. I think we might have watched it a few times after that, but we stopped watching it for some reason. I can't remember why. Maybe we just outgrew it. Pigglesnork came back then. I watched it in 92, but I kind of outgrew puppets after that. I think it still comes on, but it's like hard to find TVs with dials anymore, and it doesn't seem to work on new TVs. Me. Does anyone know if there are VHS tapes of it? Is there maybe a particular place where it was recorded? My dad thought it was run by a cult and that my mom might have been part of it. My grandmother showed me a picture after my dad died, and I think the host, Miss Mary, might have been my mother. I kind of regretted posting that when the responses dried up after the constant back and forth for the last 30 minutes. Had I crossed a line? Had my little bombshell been too much? I got back to work, checking back often, and when a message finally popped up, I realized my error. Pigglesnork, to me. Are you playing with us? Because if you're trying to pull some ARG make-believe creepypasta bullcrap, then we're not buying it. Clearly you've seen the show, and that's the only reason I'm responding at all, but if this is a game to you, then don't bother responding. If you're being legitimate, then maybe post the picture you're talking about, so we can judge for ourselves. Luckily for me, Grandma had let me keep the picture, and I was able to snap a pic and send it to the 4 users that had been talking to me. The response came back pretty quickly, and it seemed that Pigglesnork believed me. Okay, I believe you. It's a little weird to think about any of this being real, but I guess stranger things have happened. I don't have a clue where Bright Farm is, but I can maybe do a little digging and see what I can find. Crafty Creaky Crabbling came back about that time. I don't know where it is either, but I do know where you might get tapes if you're interested. Me? Yes, please, if you know anything, anywhere I might could get tapes, just let me know. Bendros came back then. Creaky, I know you're not suggesting that she goes to Video Time Capsule. Creaky Crafty Crabbling to Bendros. I was, actually. You know it's the best chance of her finding anything. Pigglesnork. OMG, that place is sketchy AF. If you go, please take someone with you. The guy there is really creepy. Bendros came back then. I don't recommend going at all. That place is very sketchy, and some of the things he offers are a little too good to be true. Bendros and Pigglesnork tried to talk me out of it, but eventually I just messaged Creaky to get the address. He sent me an address in South Carolina, and a warning. His prices are high, and he only takes cash. Make sure you bring enough to pay for what you're looking for. I sat there, looking at the address, wondering if this was the lead I'd been waiting for. I didn't know anyone who'd be willing to come with me, but the GPS says the store is an 8-hour drive from my house. It's the best lead I've had so far, and I feel like it's my best chance to find what I'm looking for. I went and talked to my grandma after that, and she looked worried. She's been supportive of me searching for my mom, but I can tell that the idea of me getting close to the Bright Church scares her. She remembers what it was like when Mom left, and she doesn't want to lose me too. I'll help you any way I can, kiddo, but I really hope you aren't getting in over your head. I had the picture out again, staring at the smiling woman in the old photo and wondering if she would still be anything like this. She looked so different in this picture than Miss Mary did. That wasn't entirely true. Most of the changes were something I could attribute to the cult. But would she still want to see me? Would she want anything to do with me, besides just trying to get me to join her cult? In my mind, I thought maybe I could save her, bring her back to reality, and we could be a family again. I'd lost Dad, but if Mom was still out there, I wanted to know that she was okay. I need to know, Grandma. I need to know if she's still alive. I've no desire to join the Bright Church, but I do want to see her. Grandma nodded. I thought you might say that. She went to her room and brought back an envelope. Under her arm, she also had the old TV I had watched as a kid, though she seemed less sure that that would help me. She sat both on the table, but it was the envelope that she slid towards me first. Your dad left you some money when he died. He left you more than that, but if you're gonna go chasing ghosts or cults, this might help. The house is yours too, and his truck. Pretty much left everything to you, she said with a little chuckle. I opened the envelope and found more than I had expected. Dad had been a man of means, but I hadn't expected anything like this. This would definitely get me where I needed to go, and the truck would get me there quicker than my dodgy old Corolla would. I thanked Grandma for giving it to me, but she just waved her hand dismissively. "It belongs to you. I was just holding it for a rainy day. Please do me a favor, though, if you're serious about this." I told her I would, and she reached over to take my hands as she leaned in to look me in the eye. "Come back safe. I've already had to bury your father. I'm too old to bury my only grandchild, too. Come back safe to me. Bring your mother if you can. If you can't, then I'll gladly take you safe and sound, and count myself very lucky." I'm about to hit the road now. An overnight bag in the back seat and the old TV on the front seat beside me. I'm not sure why I brought it, but it seemed right that I should. Dad's truck still smells like him, and it makes me nostalgic as I sit here, writing this and breathing in the aromas of old tobacco, lye soap, ancient fast food, and spearmint. It makes me a little sad when I realize that these smells will be gone someday, and I'll be left with just a memory of my stoic old dad. I'll let you know when I get to this place, and I'll keep you posted on my progress. Wish me luck. You're still here. I thought you might be. Thanks for joining me for tonight's story. If your insatiable appetite for horror knows no bounds, might I suggest one of our playlists, or one of our previous stories in the archive? There should be one appearing at the end of the story any minute now. And of course, if you're not subscribed, why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Maybe hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If you prefer your horror a little more analog, you can always pick up one of my books. There's a link below to my latest, and it'll take you to all the great things that I've posted on Amazon. For my book lovers in the audience, I always suggest coming on down to Patreon so you can become part of my ghostly reader tier and get a book anytime I write one, which is usually about twice a year. Speaking of my patrons, let's go ahead and thank them, shall we? Thanks to Unicorn Hollow for being our spooky ghost contributor. Thanks to Janet and Lady Vengeance for being our spooky skeleton tier contributors. Thanks to Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being our ghostly reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. If you think you might like to support the show in a more monetary fashion, come on down to Patreon. I have many tiers. I'm sure you'll find one that suits you best. I always recommend the Ghostly Reader tier, since you get a signed book anytime I write one on your doorstep. But I have many tiers, and again, I'm sure you'll find one to suit you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.